Hello everybody, welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making a lemon tart or tarte au citron. This is going to be a nice biscuity type of pastry crust in a tart tin, and it's going to be filled with a lemon custard which is made over a bain-marie, a double boiler, and then simply poured into the cooled tart tin and allowed to set. It's actually quite simple, but it takes a little bit of time because the pastry has to chill a couple of times before it's baked, and then you have to wait after you've filled it with the lemon custard. You have to wait for it to set, chill and set. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for the lemon custard I have 160 millilitres, which is 2/3 of a cup of lemon juice, freshly squeezed. I have the zest from 2 of those lemons. I have 200 grams, which is 1 cup of caster sugar. I have 4 medium eggs, that would be large in the USA, and 270 grams, which is 2 sticks plus 3 tablespoons of butter, which by the time I need it will be at room temperature. So I'll set those to one side because we don't need to do anything with that at the moment, and we'll talk about the ingredients for the pastry. And for that I have 250 grams, which is 1 2/3 cups of plain flour or cake and pastry flour, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 100 grams of icing sugar, which is about 3/4 of a cup. I have 125 grams, 1 stick plus 1 tablespoon of cold butter, that's just come out of the fridge. I have 1 medium egg, large in the USA, again that's cold, just come out of the fridge, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to make this pastry in my immersion blender. You can do it in a food processor, and you can also do it by hand by putting the ingredients, the flour, icing sugar, salt and butter into a large bowl and rubbing it between your fingers and then adding the egg. But I'm going to do it in this little blender here because it's quick and easy to do. So I'm going to put the flour and the icing sugar and the salt into the blender, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of a shake to get it mixed around a little bit. That's good enough. And then I'm going to put the butter in, and I'm going to just pulse it until I achieve a sort of coarse sand or a fine breadcrumb like texture. I want the butter fully integrated into the flour. So I'll just pulse this until it all is turned into a fine breadcrumb texture. So as you can see, that butter has been incorporated very nicely into the flour. I have a nice texture. So then I'm going to add in my egg, but first of all I'm just going to break the yolk into the whites. and I'm going to process this in the flour until it just begins to clump, and then I can use my hand to pull it into a dough. Now that's just going to clump. If I take some of that and squeeze it in my fingers, you can see that it's forming a paste. So I'm actually going to tip that out, and I'm going to tip it out onto some plastic wrap, because I'm going to end up wrapping it up in plastic wrap. And I'm going to use my hands to squeeze that together until we have a dough. And as you can see, it works very easily coming together. And then I'm going to form that into a disc. And I'm going to chill that wrapped up in the fridge for 2 hours. I want that to be nice and cold, and then I'll take it out of the fridge after the 2 hours and leave it for about 10 minutes so that it becomes workable that little bit easier. And I'll come back and we'll roll it out and fill a 23 centimetre 9-inch springform, 9-inch Tart tin with a removable base. If you don't have one of those, you can use another 9-inch, maybe a 9-inch sandwich tin, but you might want to just grease the bottom of that, but I think it should still come out quite well. So I'll be back with you in just over 2 hours when this pastry dough has chilled and we're ready to roll it out. The pastry dough has chilled now for 2 hours, and I've taken it out and I've actually trimmed a little bit off because I don't quite need all of it for this particular tart tin. I may actually make a couple of smaller ones just in case I have enough filling left over to fill those as well. So I've got about 350-400 grams of it here, and I've got about 150 grams chilling in the fridge again. So I'm going to roll this out until it's wide enough in diameter to fill my tart tin and come up the sides of the tart tin as well. And as I roll, I turn the pastry to try to keep it in a reasonably round shape. Now, if this cracks and you have to patch it, it doesn't matter. It will still work fine. So that's almost large enough to come up the sides of the tin as well. I'm just going to give it a little bit more. Like that. And I'm actually going to slide this underneath. Just like that. And then I'm going to pick that up and put it into the tin. And if I need to just lift it and move it, that's fine. And I'm going to trim off the excess. Like that. And then I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to prick the surface all over, because we need to blind bake this pastry before we put our filling in. And I'm going to put that back into the fridge, and I'm going to chill that for another 30 minutes. And while it's chilling, I'm going to preheat my oven to 180 Celsius, that's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit. And then after 30 minutes, I'll come back and we will blind bake the pastry, and then we can go on, once that's done, we can go on to make our custard, lemon custard cream filling. So it's been 30 minutes and the pastry has chilled and my oven has preheated. So I have here some parchment paper which I'm going to push into the tart tin to line the pastry, and then I'm going to fill that with my ceramic baking beans. Now you could use rice or beans or something like that, lentils, anything like that, to fill the paper. And I'm pushing it up against the sides like that. And then I just need to bake that, and I need to bake it for 15 minutes with these baking beans in. Then I'm going to take it out of the oven, remove the baking beans and the parchment paper, and put it back in the oven again for a further 5 minutes. That's just to cook the top of the pastry where the beans have been laying, or the parchment paper has been laying against it. Then I'll take it out and allow it to cool down completely. And then as it's cooling down completely, I'll come back and we'll make our lemon custard cream. I baked the pastry tart shell in the oven for 15 minutes, took it out and removed the parchment paper and the ceramic beans. Then I put it back in the oven and baked it for a further 5 minutes. And this is what it looks like. And it's cooled down. So I'm going to put that to one side while we actually make the lemon filling. And to do that, I'm going to start off by putting my sugar into a bowl and adding my lemon zest, and then I'm going to mix that around. It's the lemon zest which gives off so much of the flavour in these things. You can, if you want to, rub this between your fingers to really get the the oil's working, but I think just like this will be good enough. And then I'm going to add in my lemon juice, and I'm going to whisk that around. And then I'm going to put in my 4 eggs as well. Whisk everything around until it's all combined. And so the next thing to do is to heat that on a bain-marie or a double boiler, whisking or stirring all the time so that the eggs don't coagulate. And I'm going to heat that up until it reaches about 81 Celsius, 177 Fahrenheit. It will thicken up as it's heating, and it will be quite thick by the time it reaches that temperature. So you want it quite thick. And then once it's as thick as that, I'll take it off the heat. Then we have to cool it down a little bit before adding the butter. So I'll show you the process on the bain-marie. So I have hot water in my pan, and I have the heat on, but the water must not touch the underside of the bowl, otherwise it won't work properly. You just need to have it, once it's boiling, you just need the water to be simmering. And I'm going to whisk the whole time. In fact, probably for the first minute or two you don't need to whisk, but I'm going to. So that has reached my temperature, and as you can see it's thickened up quite nicely. So I'm going to take that off the heat and transfer it into another bowl. So I've transferred the lemon mixture into another bowl, and that's simply because that bowl that it was in was very, very hot, and I want this to cool down by about 20 degrees. So when it's reached about 60 degrees Celsius, I'm going to add my butter in, and I will stir that in, but I'll come back and show you that once the lemon mixture has cooled down. So the temperature has dropped now on my lemon filling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir or whisk the butter in, and I'm going to do it a little bit at a time. And then I will keep whisking that until all the butter has been broken down and mixed in, and that's good. That's mixed in quite nicely. So the last thing to do is to put that into our tart tin. I've taken the tart case out of its tin, and I'm simply going to pour the mixture in. So I'll give that a little shake just to level off the filling, and with that, like that, I'm going to leave that to set until it's completely set. And I'll actually, once it's cooled down a little bit more, I'll put it into the fridge and leave it for about 3 hours. Then I'll check it, and if it's set, I'll come back and show you the result. If not, I'll leave it a little longer, and I'll tell you about that when I come back. Well, I let the lemon tart, or the Tarte Citron, chill in the fridge, and I've actually chilled it for about 3 hours, I think, maybe slightly under 3 hours, but it looked fairly set, firm to me. So I've taken it out of the fridge and I've cut a slice. So this is what it looks like. So it sets up quite nicely, as you can see, and I have the slice here, and I'll have a taste of this. Very, very good. The sweetness of the sugar offsets the tartness, and it is a very tart lemon. It's nice and smooth on the palate, and the pastry is very good too. So this is actually quite a simple recipe. It just takes a little bit of time. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, which will take you to this recipe, and I'll put a link for it below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.